tired sigh. Porch light hums neath the midnight sky. Freight armchair where the shadows cling. Mug of coffee gone cold as spring. We don't talk much about the sharpest pain. Just night slow when the words feel vain. Scuffed boots propped on the splintered rail. Each scar a story we don't need to tell. Weathered hands twist a frayed old string. Finding peace in the quiet thing. Welcome to Depression Talks, where the walls don't judge. Where we trade our ghosts for a mug of sludge. No fixing words, no shiny lies. Just a place to let the dark side rise. Welcome to Depression Talks, where the silence fits. Where we hold each other through the longest pits. We don't cheer loud, we just sit and breathe. Finding hope in a broken weed.
Welcome. This is Depression Talks, and this is our very, very first podcast. Today, I would like to introduce you to Ryan. Ryan has a channel on YouTube called Mysticforgeoutdoors. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, as you know, we talk about all things that are depression, anxiety related. So, let's get into it, mate. Tell me your story. When was it that you realized that the depression was taking hold of you, and how did you move forward? Start wherever you want to start from, mate.
All right. I guess it would have to be middle school. Like, I was pretty young, probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. I realized I wasn't like a lot of the other kids in school, and didn't have a whole lot of friends. I realized, I don't know, kind of my entire mode of being for that a pretty big chunk of my life starting there. Realized I wasn't quite. I felt like I was missing something that the other kids had that I didn't really have, and
Okay.
definitely seemed like, yeah.
So, do you know what it was in particular that that set it off at that age? Did you know what it was that you was missing? Was it just a gut feeling that you couldn't quite put your finger on?
Well, I would notice, like, the thing that kind of clued me in was the excitement. A lot of my friends, I didn't have very many friends, but I had a couple of friends. They would get really excited about stuff like birthdays, holidays, and stuff like that. And I just kind of had this, I would never really get excited about anything. And that was kind of the first thing that made me notice that. And I mean, it was more situational depression. I
Okay.
didn't have the best social life at school and everything. I kind of got bullied for being a weird outdoor kid, and just kind of was interested in my bugs and rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was played a big part in it. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends in the social group. I think I had like 2 friends really, growing up until probably high school. But yeah.
So it was just a case of that you wanted to be outdoors. You wanted to be learning about bugs and doing stuff that most kids don't do they? I mean, for myself, I used to do very similar things. It wasn't so much bugs, but it was about being outdoors, going in the woods and so on, just things like that. Do you think part of that was ADHD?
Oh, 100%. It was definitely, I would say the natural world was my first, like, the ADHD hyperfixation. You get that one thing you really like, and then you really run with it. And then for me at least, before I learned to kind of dial it back, my hyperfixations kind of like became, for a while, it's like all I wanted to talk about, all I wanted to think about, everything had to relate to that, or I wasn't interested. But yeah, I think it absolutely was related to the ADHD. And I was diagnosed with ADHD probably 2 or 3 years before this as a kid. So I was probably
Okay.
like 7 or 8. But yeah. Yeah.
Did you have specific coping mechanisms with your ADHD? Obviously, a little bit like myself, I'm not diagnosed with ADHD. I find I get hyper focused on certain things and I push on certain things. And then after so long, it's almost like if I haven't completed what I've started after a period of time, my mind goes. And I completely lose interest in that thing. So I don't know if that's similar for you.
I'm kind of the same way, to a certain degree. My thing is more like my coping mechanisms are more like my my whole thing is I'm very much more. I have to keep focused on it. I have to keep doing it, or it kind of just nags in the back of my mind. Like I have to really, really, really
Yeah.
focus on getting that done, especially if it's something that is one of my, laser focused hyperfixations. Yeah.
When you realized that the depression was taking a hold, so how did that affect you? How did you sort of move forward from it? Did you have specific coping mechanisms for the depression? And how long did it last for? How long did you
Oh,
keep going for?
so I didn't really get. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I just kind of had that. I don't know how to describe it other than like a dull apathy towards everything. And I didn't really realize what it was or how to cope with it at all until I was probably in my early 20s, honestly. And once I kind of addressed it, because I talked about it with a friend and I was like, I'm tired of, I kind of hit a rock bottom probably in my early 20s, been homeless for a little bit. I mean, nothing to show for life at all, stranded in another state. No friends to talk to or anything. I'd moved from my home state to another state, probably about 1,000 miles away, and I had really hit rock bottom. And I just had. I mean, the depression had hit its absolute height, and then talking about it to a coworker, she's like, "Well, you never smile. You never like ask to do anything. You just come in and work and go home." And I'm like, "That's really all I am." She's like, "Are you sure you're not maybe depressed?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe." I started doing a little bit of research, and then started, looking for little. The small victories was a big thing for me. I know you talk about that a lot on your channel, but
Yeah,
having any little victory be kind of a big thing. Making a big deal out of little victories and kind of not exactly like hyping myself up to do that, but in a way doing that kind of making these small victories mountains out of molehills, but in a very positive sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It definitely helps. It's helped me a lot.
Yeah. I probably another thing with me for sure was I would spiral a lot when it came to you get in those depressive cycles and you get like you know you're already in your depressive state, and then at least for me, I can't really speak for yours, but I know it's different for pretty much everyone, but I would have something happen and then I would just spiral and I would feed into it, and it could be something as simple as like working fast food and having a customer be particularly rude, and then then
Yeah,
you get home and then you start looking for other reasons to be depressed, and then you feed into that, and then you look for more, and you spiral, and yeah, you
definitely.
hit,
Definitely.
yeah,
It only takes one small negativity to it just pushes you and pushes you and pushes you from that one small thing, and you start questioning everything about yourself.
yeah, for sure, yeah. And a big part of my coping with it was identifying when I would start to do that, that self initiating spiral. I would identify when I
Yeah,
was like, all right, I'm upset about this, but am I being too upset about this? And am I, holding on to it for longer than I needed to?
Right.
That was definitely a big, big help.
I know recently things have changed for you with your everyday life.
Mhm.
How has that affected you? Has that caused you to spiral at all, or have you kept things in check?
I've kept things pretty much in check. I definitely haven't let uh, it get to me. I kind of see it like a wall. Not like a people talk about not putting up walls, but it's kind of like okay, I know the situation is here. I'm not going to let this affect me to the depth that it would have 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I would have been in 10 years ago. I'd have been in full spiral all the way down. But yeah, at least recently lost my job and have two little ones. I was the main breadwinner, and the situation that got me let go of at work was it was a pretty bad one, and I've been really trying not to like dwell on that. So I
Yeah.
think that's really, I switched the mentality of like what's wrong in my life to what can I do to make my situation better. And I think
Yeah.
that shift in focus has been extremely helpful for me, at least with my depression. And it's really easy when you're prone to depression or prone to those negative spirals to be like, okay, well, I'm in this situation. It's very easy to just let yourself spiral. It's really easy to give into that. But it's like you have to decide that you want to, okay.
Yeah. So we tend to do this. We tend to do the spiral thing, and it's really difficult to sort of realize that when you are spiraling, you don't see it coming, and all of a sudden you're sort of, I don't want to get out of bed anymore. I just want to lie here.
Yep.
At least for me, that's how it feels for me. So when you started to spiral and you realized that you were spiraling, how did you move forward from there? How did you sort of push yourself out of that?
Well, it wasn't all at once. It was just kind of little things at a time. It would be like, okay, well, I want to lay in bed like the depression rot is what I call it. You lay in bed and I remember one time I laid in bed for like 2 days, except for
Yeah.
getting up and going to the bathroom and eating and drinking a little bit. But yeah, it was like little bits at a time. Like, okay, I just want to lay here, and then like forcing yourself to just pick up the dirty clothes near your bed, or just go and do something I needed to do, and then kind of, I don't know if it was like exactly like the dopamine, from doing that. Those small victories, the small little things. I'm big on lists. I always
Yeah.
like to make a list, even if there's, break something down into, gather and wash laundry. You can break that down into like picking up your laundry, taking it to the laundry room, putting it in the washer. And, when you especially are in the deep throes of depression,
Definitely.
those
Yeah.
things are, yeah, those can be like Herculean tasks. And it's, doing that was very helpful for me. I think, especially with the ADHD as well. I very much like the lists. So being able to go there and cross off each thing from the list gave me, just a little bit of a bump to, go and actually get some more done. Then it was just
So
like
it's just
slow
like
correcting.
tick, tick,
Yeah.
tick sort of thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that feeling of completion, it definitely gives you that boost, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah. I mean, that was very, very helpful for me. I mean, it still is, I may not be, my depression's definitely a lot better than it used to be. But I mean, it's still there. I mean, you still have days. All it takes is like one argument with the wife or a bad situation at work or something, and then you just get those little down moments, and then just careful to
Yeah,
not let yourself spiral. But yeah, it's all about, at least for me, identifying when it happens, taking steps to get out of it as early as possible, because it's like going downstairs, like a giant spiraling staircase. It's really easy to go down, but it's a lot harder to go back up.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
So the key for me has been identifying when I'm starting to go down, and then just putting a stop to it as best I can at that exact moment. That's been the best way for me to cope. Is I'm very much a big proponent of knowing yourself as a person, like especially psychologically.
Yeah.
Identifying your mental cycles, and you just how you operate as a person. I think that's an incredibly useful thing for anyone. I mean, even if you don't suffer from depression or
Yeah,
anything, but
definitely.
yeah.
So when you found, forging and doing the things that you love to do, come on then, dog. Um, did you find that that helped you to pull yourself out of all that and sort of move forward and enjoy life a little bit more? I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Now, like there's like a really positive side to that and a really negative side to that. For me at least, because I did find it. It was one of my hyperfixations as an adult. Of course, when I had money to actually spend on a hobby.
Yeah.
So it's like going deep in, and then using my hobbies as a crutch to not exactly address the things that were really getting me down and really affecting me. So I would just go and work in the workshop for like 12, 15 hours. And I realized that was really, really unhealthy when I was first learning, because I mean, that just is a more active version of rotting in your bed. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I just go in my workshop and work and work and work. But, you know, I have a
It's just
tendency
it's
person.
sorry, apologies.
That's fine.
It's just another way of self-isolating, isn't it? You
Yes.
sort of lock yourself away in the workshop, and you're doing stuff in there, and you're totally fixated on what you're doing. You get lost in what you're doing. You lose track of time, and you don't realize that you're just shutting yourself away from other people.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely did that. I remember the exact moment that kind of like wake up call happened. I had been working on a knife, and I worked on it from start to finish without going in my house. I really have to go to the bathroom, and I realized I'd been in there for almost 20 hours. And it's like I had not eaten, I had not drank, I had not talked to anyone. I had 30 text messages from people on my phone, and I just was like, okay, I'm a little too lasered in on this. And yeah, it was absolutely self isolation. It was
Yeah.
yeah, and that was kind of like a wake up call for me, because I realized I'd replaced the just laying in bed rotting with that. Maybe even because a lot of times whenever I would have the bed rot times, I would just you know scroll on my phone or something, and not even interact with anyone, not do anything, but just
Yeah.
yeah, watch YouTube for the entire day and then go back to sleep and wake up and do it again.
I think doom scrolling is probably the worst thing that any of us do, and we all do it. I think I'll sit with my phone in my hand, doom scrolling, and I've completely shut off from everything around me. And it's funny because I can be on a live, and the wife will come in and we'll chat while I'm live.
Mhm.
But if I'm fixated doom scrolling, I'll shut down, and it's almost we don't have a conversation. the wife will be sat on her phone, and she'll be doing what she's doing, or she'll be doing paperwork, or one thing or another, and I'll be sat with my phone in my hand, not talking to anyone, watching whatever it is I'm watching, whether it be doom scrolling or watching you making something, or homemade with Ron or Calvin, or whatever, and I get completely lost in what I'm doing, and I don't realize that the time's passing. And before I know
Yeah.
it, it's bedtime. And then I'm in bed and I'm doing it again. I'm doom scrolling, and the wife's watching something on the TV that we're supposed to be watching together. And I'm completely lost in my phone. And you just don't realize how much it affects your home life.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure. And I mean, it's like, to anyone who's watching, it's like, it's kind of funny because we're on YouTube, but
Yeah.
it's like, when was the last time you watched your phone or messed on your phone, for several hours and then felt good about it afterwards? Like, when was the last time it felt like refreshing? And like, that's, phones especially. I think that's the reason a lot of people do suffer from depression personally.
Yeah.
Because the dopamine overdose, and or the dopamine addiction, and everything. It's like people need stimulation all the time, and when they don't have that, it's like, one, they can't deal with the lack of stimulation because they've just burnt out their dopamine receptors.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. I mean, even knowing that, it's so hard to put your phone down and just do stuff and be alive.
Yeah.
And I find that it's, especially if you're suffering from depression, it's really easy just to be like, well, if I get lost in my phone, I'm not feeling the depth of the depression that I'm feeling.
It kind of masks it, doesn't it?
It
In
does,
that
yeah.
period of time that you're occupied on your phone, it masks the way that you're feeling. It sort of puts it to the back of your mind until the moment you put your phone down,
Hmm.
or you put down whatever it is that you're doing at that time, whether you be I don't know, for you maybe forging a knife, or for me carving something, or making something, or working on the car, or playing a game on my phone, and I get completely lost in that. But and the
Oh yeah.
second you put that down, it's like, oof, all these thoughts come back,
Yep.
and it's finding a way to stop the thoughts without masking them.
Yeah.
I think, and
Absolutely.
that's the hardest part, because occupying your mind for a few hours isn't necessarily enough to help
Mm-mm.
you beat that cycle.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. Is like, I've noticed, because I used to do this thing where it'd be like Techless Tuesday, or Techless Saturday. One day to just not partake in any, like, not watch my phone, not watch Netflix, not play video games, nothing.
Yeah.
Um, just to kind of bring presence back. But
Did it
I
help?
don't know. It did and it didn't. Um, because it's like you would do that, but then it's like, especially if you didn't have anything to do that day, or didn't have, like, one, the money to go do things, uh, you know, or the time to go do other stuff. You catch up on your house chores and everything, but it definitely gives you a lot more time to think. And I think it's kind of like, especially when you do put that mask on and you distract yourself, I feel like all those, bad thoughts just kind of like pool up, and then, it's like
Oh, excuse
catching them
me.
in your hands.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then as soon as you have, your brain's like, okay, time to think about it, and it's all just dumps on you. But I think that's probably a good thing, because I feel like that gives you more opportunity, one, to get used to that, and two, to kind of process through things,
Yeah.
instead of just putting them off to the side and distracting yourself for a while. But, yeah.
If if you could sort of go back to when you first realized that you were suffering with the depression, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself back at that point?
Oh man. One thing that probably would have helped me the most, especially back then it was definitely probably situational depression, getting bullied and, you know, having a bad social life. There was it probably would be just to not take to heart so much what other people think. Um
Yeah,
that'd probably be the best thing because it's like we're kind of trained by society to value other people's opinions, especially about you, and you're supposed to do all that. But I remember I was in high school, and there was a kid who lived right down the street, and he was with a group of kids who like particularly like bullied me, like went out of their way to do that. And he said something to me. I don't even remember what it was. It was so insignificant, but it was like, some stupid. I think I was a freshman in high school, and he said something to me, and I realized I was like, this guy's opinion doesn't matter. It's like this. I'm not going to know. I'm not going to keep in touch with this person. I'm not going to be around this person in 5 years. So why
yeah.
should I let him affect me that much? I think that'd probably be if I had adopted that a little bit earlier. I think I'd probably be a little bit. I would have been a lot better mentally when it came to, you know, not having the little spirals as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd probably be it.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I would be able to offer myself any advice when I was younger. It didn't really, depression wasn't really a thing for me when I was young. It only actually hit me in my 20s.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Oh, excuse me.
ah,
Well, that's one of the side effects of the the sertraline tablets.
mm,
Uh, they make you tired, so you'll spend all day being tired.
ah,
But when it comes to going to bed, you can't sleep because
man.
your mind's going and going and going, and
Mm,
you just can't stop
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's
So
that's
that's another
unfortunate. Yeah,
part.
yeah.
And you can
That's
sort
definitely rough.
of, yeah, you can occupy your mind all day long. You can keep yourself busy, and you'll go to bed and you'll be absolutely exhausted.
Mm,
Sorry, you'll be absolutely exhausted, and nothing you do will help you sleep that night. Yeah,
yeah.
you know, it'll just be one thought after another thought after another thought, and it can be something that you've been working on all day, and you're just trying to
Ah,
figure out a way of doing something that you want to do, and you just can't get your head around doing it. So it's a strange thing, really.
yeah.
You
You
just can't
know,
shut off.
yeah. It's really interesting that you mentioned that because when I do go, because like in my last couple of jobs, I've been able to listen to, have an earbud in, just a single one as long as you're safe. So I tend to listen to like audiobooks, podcasts, music, things like that. And
Yeah,
I've noticed the days when I don't have that, that's when like those thoughts, especially like, okay, well, I make stuff, I do outdoor stuff on my YouTube channel stuff.
yeah,
Uh, that's when all the ideas come to me is when I don't have that. And like you said, it's like you just can't shut it off. And it can be frustrating. Especially, depression and insomnia, they're best friends. They're like this. Especially,
definitely.
yeah. I mean especially with that medicine, that's really bad that exacerbates that. Yeah, that's
It does definitely.
definitely.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's always around the same time of day. It's always around sort of 2 p.m. for
Mm.
me. It's quite early in the morning there for you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
I think I'm about 6 hours behind you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Rather you than me. Rather you than me. Bless you. Did you hear that?
I got a little bit of it, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up there, mate. Thank you very much for taking part.
Happy to be here.
I'm going to try and figure out now how to edit and work it all around. And obviously I want to check to see if when the camera was cutting off at my end, if it's through that way on the recording. But thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you, mate. I love the stuff that you do on your live streams. Keep doing what you're doing. I hope that it keeps building up for you, mate. I really do. And I will attempt to edit in and put your link in the video as well to the channel.
That, man.
But yes, thank you very much, mate. It's really good of you to open up a little bit and talk about the things that you've been through in the past. And yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that will be able to associate with some of the things that you've said. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's definitely been an interesting experience. I haven't really, I mean, stuff I talked about today, I've never really talked about with anyone, my wife can hear in the other room. I'm sure she heard some things she's never heard before. But yeah, it's been definitely an interesting experience to kind of like vocalize and like externalize, some of that. And so I appreciate you for the opportunity to do that. Kind of a novel experience.
You're very, very welcome. And it's been nerve-wracking, I've got to be completely honest. Yeah, the anxiety was pretty high. It still is pretty high, to be fair. But yeah, it is what it is. Hopefully people will enjoy it. And yeah, thank you once again, mate.
Screen door whines like a tired sigh. Porch light hums neath the midnight sky. Freight armchair where the shadows cling. Mug of coffee gone cold as spring. We don't talk much about the sharpest pain. Just night slow when the words feel vain. Scuffed boots propped on the splinter rail. Each scar a story we don't need to tell. Weathered hands twist a frayed old string. Finding peace in the quiet thing. Welcome to Depression Talks, where the